Imagine this: a quiet, unassuming housemaid whose life has always been defined by routine and simplicity, suddenly finds herself caught in a whirlwind of emotions she never anticipated. Her employer, a man of undeniable charm and magnetism, exudes a presence that is impossible to ignore. What starts as a professional relationship slowly unravels into something far more complicated, something forbidden. But here's the question that will keep you hooked. How far will they go to chase a love that society deems unacceptable? And what happens when the lines between right and wrong blur so intensely that there's no turning back? If you've ever wondered what it feels like to be torn between desire and duty, between passion and morality, then you're in the right place. This is a story that will challenge your beliefs, tug at your heartstrings, and leave you questioning the very nature of love itself. Let me ask you something. Have you ever felt an undeniable pull towards someone you knew you shouldn't? That magnetic attraction that defies logic and reason? If so, then you already understand the turmoil our innocent housemaid is about to face. Her story is not just about love. It's about the choices we make when our hearts and minds are at war. It's about the consequences of giving in to temptation and the price we pay for following our desires. And trust me, by the end of this video, you'll have the answers you've been searching for. But here's the catch: you'll have to stay with me until the very end to uncover the truth. Now, let's set the stage. Picture a sprawling mansion nestled in the heart of a quiet town, its grandeur a stark contrast to the simplicity of the housemaid's life. She's young, kind-hearted, and hardworking, with dreams that stretch far beyond the walls of the estate. Her employer, on the other hand, is a man of power and influence, someone who commands attention wherever he goes. His charisma is intoxicating, his presence overwhelming. From the moment they meet, there's an unspoken tension, a connection that neither of them can ignore. But here's the twist: their worlds couldn't be more different. She's the help, he's the master. And in a society that thrives on boundaries, their growing attraction is a recipe for disaster. As the story unfolds, you'll meet the key players in this intricate drama. There's the housemaid whose innocence and vulnerability make her all the more endearing. Then there's the employer whose magnetic personality hides a depth of emotion he rarely shows to the world. And let's not forget the other characters who add layers of complexity to the narrative: the jealous coworker, the suspicious spouse, and the nosy neighbor who seems to know more than she lets on. Each character brings something unique to the table, weaving a web of intrigue that will keep you guessing until the very end. But this story isn't just about the characters. It's about the themes that resonate with all of us. Love, desire, power, and morality are at the heart of this tale, and they're explored in ways that will make you think long after the video ends. What does it mean to truly love someone? Is it worth risking everything for a chance at happiness? And where do we draw the line between right and wrong? These are the questions that will linger in your mind as you watch the story unfold. Now, I know what you're thinking. How does it all end? Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? But here's the thing: I'm not going to give it away just yet. What I will tell you is this: the journey is just as important as the destination. Every twist, every turn, every moment of tension and passion will keep you on the edge of your seat. And by the time we reach the climax, you'll be so invested in the characters and their story that the ending will hit you like a ton of bricks. So here's my challenge to you: stick with me until the very end. Don't click away, don't lose focus, because the payoff is worth it. This isn't just another love story. It's a deep dive into the human psyche, an exploration of the choices we make and the consequences we face. And who knows? By the end of it, you might just see a little bit of yourself in the characters. But before we dive into the heart of the story, let me leave you with this. What would you do if you were in the housemaid's shoes? Would you follow your heart, even if it meant breaking the rules? Or would you walk away knowing that some loves are better left unexplored? The answer might not be as simple as you think. And as the story unfolds, you'll find yourself questioning everything you thought you knew about love, desire, and the lengths we go to for the people who captivate us. So, are you ready to uncover the truth? Are you ready to dive into a story that will challenge your beliefs and leave you breathless? Then let's begin. But remember, this is just the beginning. The real mystery, the real heartbreak, and the real passion are yet to come. And trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment. Stay tuned, because what happens next will change everything. The housemaid, whose name was Clara, had always lived a life of quiet simplicity. Growing up in a small, rural town, she had learned early on that the world was not kind to those who dared to dream too big. Her family struggled to make ends meet, and by the time she was 16, Clara had already taken on odd jobs to help put food on the table. When the opportunity to work as a housemaid at the prestigious Evergreen estate came her way, it felt like a stroke of luck she couldn't afford to pass up. The estate was owned by the enigmatic Mr. Alexander Hartwell, a man whose name carried weight in both business and social circles. To Clara, he was almost a mythical figure, someone she had heard about in whispers, but never imagined she would meet, let alone work for. From the moment Clara stepped into the grand foyer of the estate, she felt out of place. The opulence of the mansion, with its towering ceilings, crystal chandeliers, and marble floors, was a world away from the modest home she had grown up in. But Claire was determined to prove herself. She worked tirelessly, ensuring every corner of the house sparkled, every meal was prepared to perfection, and every request from the Hartwell family was met with unwavering dedication. It wasn't long before her quiet diligence caught the attention of Mr. Hartwell himself. Alexander was a man who noticed everything, and Claire's presence was impossible to ignore. There was something about her, her quiet strength, her unassuming beauty, and the way she carried herself with a grace that seemed at odds with her humble background. At first, their interactions were brief and professional. A polite nod here, a courteous thank you there. But as the days turned into weeks, something began to shift. Alexander found himself seeking out reasons to be near Clara, whether it was to ask about the progress of her work or to casually inquire about her day. Clara, for her part, couldn't help but feel a flutter of excitement whenever he was near. There was a magnetism about him that was impossible to resist, a combination of his commanding presence, his piercing gaze, and the way he seemed to see straight through her carefully constructed walls. But their growing connection did not go unnoticed. The other staff members, particularly the head housekeeper, Mrs. Thompson, began to whisper among themselves. Mrs. Thompson had been with the Hartwell family for decades and prided herself on maintaining order and decorum within the household. She had seen many young women come and go, and she could sense trouble brewing. "Mark my words," she muttered to one of the kitchen staff. "That girl is going to bring nothing but trouble." Meanwhile, Alexander's wife, Eleanor, a woman of elegance and poise, began to sense a change in her husband. He was more distant, more preoccupied, and she couldn't shake the feeling that something or someone was pulling him away from her. As the tension within the household grew, so did the complexity of Clara and Alexander's relationship. What started as innocent conversations soon evolved into stolen glances and lingering touches. Clara found herself torn between her growing feelings for Alexander and the guilt that gnawed at her conscience. She knew their connection was wrong, that it crossed boundaries that could never be uncrossed. But every time she tried to pull away, Alexander would draw her back in with a look, a word, or a gesture that made her heart race. Meanwhile, a subplot began to unfold involving Clara's younger brother, Daniel, who had fallen in with a rough crowd back in their hometown. Desperate to help him, Clara sent a portion of her earnings home each month, but it never seemed to be enough. When Daniel showed up unexpectedly at the estate one evening, bruised and begging for money, Clara was forced to confront the harsh realities of her family's struggles. Alexander, who happened to overhear their conversation, offered to help, but his assistance came with strings attached. "Let me take care of you," he said, his voice low and intense. "But in return, you have to trust me." The stakes were rising, and the lines between right and wrong were becoming increasingly blurred. Claire found herself caught in a web of conflicting emotions: her loyalty to her family, her growing feelings for Alexander, and the ever-present fear of what would happen if their secret was discovered. And then there was Eleanor, whose suspicions were growing by the day. She began to dig into Claire's background, determined to uncover the truth about the girl who had seemingly bewitched her husband. As the story deepened, so did the layers of mystery. What was Alexander's true motivation? Was he genuinely drawn to Clara, or was he using her as a means to escape the pressures of his own life? And what about Clara? Was she truly in love with Alexander, or was she simply seeking a way out of the hardship she had always known? The answers were far from clear, and the tension continued to build with each passing day. By now, you're probably wondering how it all ends. Will Clara and Alexander give in to their desires, risking everything for a chance at love? Or will the weight of their choices come crashing down, destroying everything in its path? The truth is, the story is far from over. There are secrets yet to be revealed, betrayals yet to unfold, and a climax that will leave you breathless. But one thing is certain, the journey is just as important as the destination. So, stay with me, because the best is yet to come. And trust me, you won't want to miss a single moment of this gripping tale. The tension in the Hartwell household had reached a boiling point, and it seemed as though the walls themselves were closing in on Clara. Every creak of the floorboards, every whispered conversation among the staff, and every lingering glance from Alexander felt like a ticking time bomb waiting to explode. Claire's guilt weighed heavily on her, but it was nothing compared to the fear of what would happen if their secret was discovered. She had tried to distance herself from Alexander, to focus on her work and her family, but it was no use. The pull between them was too strong, too magnetic, and every time she thought she could walk away, he would find a way to draw her back in. One evening, as Clara was tidying up the library, Alexander unexpectedly. The room was bathed in the soft glow of the setting sun, casting long shadows across the shelves of books. For a moment, neither of them spoke. The air between them was thick with unspoken words and unresolved emotions. Finally, Alexander broke the silence. "Why are you avoiding me?" he asked, his voice low and tinged with frustration. Claire hesitated, her heart pounding in her chest. "We can't keep doing this," she whispered, her voice trembling. "It's wrong, and you know it." Alexander stepped closer, his eyes searching hers. "What if it doesn't feel wrong to me?" he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "What if this is the only thing that's ever felt right?" Claire's resolve wavered, but before she could respond, the sound of footsteps echoed down the hallway. They both froze, their eyes locking in a moment of shared panic. The door creaked open and Eleanor stepped into the room, her expression unreadable. "Am I interrupting something?" she asked, her tone icy. Clara's heart sank as she quickly stepped away from Alexander, her face flushed with guilt. "No, of course not," Alexander replied smoothly, though the tension in his voice was unmistakable. Eleanor's gaze flicked between the two of them, her eyes narrowing slightly. "Good," she said after a moment, "because I'd hate to think there was anything inappropriate going on under my roof." The encounter left Claire shaken, and she knew it was only a matter of time before Eleanor's suspicions turned into something more concrete. But just as she was beginning to think things couldn't get any more complicated, an unexpected twist threw everything into chaos. One afternoon, as Clara was returning from the market, she was approached by a stranger, a man in a well-tailored suit who introduced himself as Mr. Grayson, a private investigator. "I've been hired to look into a few matters concerning the Hartwell household," he said, his tone polite but firm. "And I believe you might have some information that could be of interest to me." Claire's heart raced as she tried to maintain her composure. "I don't know what you're talking about," she said, her voice steady despite the panic rising within her. Mr. Grayson smiled faintly, as if he could see right through her. "I think you do," he said, "and I think you'll find it's in your best interest to cooperate." He handed her a business card and walked away, leaving Clara standing there, her mind reeling. Who had hired him? Was it Eleanor, determined to uncover the truth about her husband's infidelity? Or was it someone else entirely, someone with their own agenda? Meanwhile, the situation with Clara's brother, Daniel, was spiraling out of control. He had gotten himself involved in a dangerous scheme with a local crime boss, and now he was in over his head. Desperate for help, he showed up at the estate again, this time with a black eye and a desperate plea. "I need money, Clara," he said, his voice shaking. "If I don't pay them back, they're going to kill me." Clara felt a surge of helplessness and anger. She had already given him so much, but it was never enough. And now, with the private investigator breathing down her neck, she couldn't risk drawing any more attention to herself. But Alexander, ever the protector, stepped in once again. "Let me handle this," he said, his tone firm. "I'll take care of your brother,